excuse me if I get emotional on this. We learned strength from my mom because she never gave up. Interest rates were 1979 to 1980 were 19%. It was very easy to give up and say that's it again, but they never stopped. They just kept persevering, kept doing what she said. You know what? This is the will of God, and maybe this had to happen for something better to happen. And through you kids, maybe we'll see success. And we're fortunate that happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of More Than a Sale, where it's not just about the successes, it's about the failures, the heartbreaks, the sorrows, to get to where you are today. And today I have
Faisal Susiwala.
He is the author of the famous book, The Real Deal, Journey of a $1 Billion Agent, #1 Remax agent in the world, with 400 plus transactions last year.
Faisal, welcome to More Than a Sale.
Thanks for having me on, Ron.
So how does someone become the #1 agent in the world? Share your secrets with us.
Well, lots of hard work, lots of blood, lots of sweat, lots of commitment and dedication. Those struggles were worth it. Everything that I went through, all the struggles we faced, through all of those adversities gave me the drive and learn and force myself to become something and not have something to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of More Than a Sale, where it's not just about the successes, it's about the failures, the heartbreaks, the sorrows, to get to where you are today. And today I have the #1 Remax agent in the world, Faisal Susiwala. He's the author of The Real Deal, Journey of a $1 Billion Agent. Not only that, he did 422 transactions last year. Faisal, welcome to More Than a Sale.
Thanks for having me on, Ron.
So how does someone become the #1 agent in the world? Share your secrets with us.
Well, lots of hard work, lots of blood, lots of sweat, lots of commitment and dedication, and the love of the business. Like at the end of the day, I can honestly say I wake up every day just thrilled to be in a business where I'm going to have the opportunity to meet great people and do amazing things. And, we bring so much joy to people when we are involved in their journey of buying a home or selling a home and upgrading. So that just keeps me really interested in the business.
So now let me ask you, you sell a lot of homes, you do a lot of transactions. Does a #1 tag help you in your business? Does it make a difference in your clients' lives? Is it something they ask you when they're meeting you?
It's all part of a branding situation, right? And, when you look at it, it's like, it means more to us as agents, quite honestly, than it does to the public.
Yeah.
And to be able to say you're #1 or your top agent, according to who? According to your mom? It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, are you going to do a good job? When you show up, that's where you're going to prove if you're #1 to that client. Because it doesn't really matter what your ads say or what your persona is or what you're trying to build as a brand. Do you drop the ball when you show up? Or do you actually show up? That's the other part of it. And that's where my commitment has been to my clients, that you call me, you get me. So that's why I don't run a team. I'm actually showing up for every single listing, be it a rental, $5 million home. I'm the guy that they're going to get.
Wow, that's incredible. I really like that perspective that you shared. I want to ask you, we see your marketing everywhere. We see your name everywhere. Do you find that agents get intimidated by you?
I don't think so. I've always had a very sort of transparent, open aura about me where it's not, and you know what? We have to, as agents, check our egos at the door.
Yeah.
Because when you start reading your own news clippings, that's when you start declining. And my whole life, I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by really good people who've grounded me. Look, when you're young and you're sort of a rising star in your own head, it's easy to start thinking, I've already arrived. And you get there, and there's always nice to surround yourself by people who sort of recalibrate you at times. And if you're getting off the path a bit, and they're like, okay, you're getting out of control here, dude. So, those are the things that I think have helped. So no, I certainly don't feel that I intimidate anyone. I hope I don't intimidate anyone. I don't think I'm that special that I would intimidate someone.
Has life changed since, you've been crowned as #1 agent in the world? Has it made an impact on anything other than, you being well known now, or you were always well known and now it's just, things have moved a little bit more positive in your corner? What would you say?
No, quite honestly, it's a self goal for me. We see things in any industry.
Yeah.
You aspire to be the best you can be in that industry. And for a national brand to recognize you as being their top person as an individual agent in the world, it's an honor. It's certainly very fulfilling. It doesn't change anything as far as I'm concerned. It may change some of the advertising, but other than that, I'm the same person I was when I was not the top 1,000th agent in
Yeah.
the world, or whatever the number may have been.
Now, when you are climbing up a ladder and you have had an illustrious year, I believe when we were talking off camera, you mentioned that you got your real estate license at 18 years of age. And tell me about that. Walk me through the journey from when you got your license to the roller coaster of a career that you've had. And I want you to share with our audience members and our listeners.
Well, you know, my story, it was an accidental story.
Right.
I'd never meant to get a real estate license. I just took a course because I was very entrepreneurial, wanted to learn about the industry, learn about investing in real estate. I used to watch these television late night shows and see the get rich quick schemes. I'm like, oh, I want to learn how to do this. And you know, you're growing up and you're thinking, okay, what's the next big thing?
Yeah.
So I took a course in summer school at Conestoga College. 6 weeks later, you got a pulse, you get a license. And I basically started in the business by mistake, because I went down to a national brand and I asked them if they would hire me. They said, you look like you're a 12 years old kid, you know, come back in 4 or 5 years after you finish your schooling, and we'll talk about it then. I didn't even have a car I had a license, but no car. And I was waiting for the bus. While I was waiting for the bus, I remembered there was a gentleman by the name of Reed Maneri, who was a helper for my dad and an agent who helped him rent his first apartment when we immigrated to Canada. And I thought, let's see if Mr. Maneri will take a chance on me, or even if he remembers me or my dad. And of course he did. He was 74 at the time. So he was the eldest member of our real estate board. I wasn't even a member yet. And I asked him if he would stay on and mentor me and take me on. And he was kind enough to do so. And I worked with him. It was a small independent brokerage after being rejected from a national brand. And it was 5 years after that I actually joined RE/MAX. So 35 years this year I've celebrated in the business. And like I said, I really love what I do.
So let's back up a little bit. You start working with Reed. What are some of the principles that you learned from him that has stuck with you even now in your career? He played a big role in shaping you to who you are today, and he played a big role as a mentor in your career. What are some of the things that he taught you? What are some of the things that you've learned?
You know, the most important lesson that I learned from him was go out there, do a good job. Don't think about the money. Don't be swayed by, you know, the shiny objects and the money and the bling and all that stuff. Just go and do a good job. And the instant gratification doesn't work. So it'll take time, but it will come. And, you know, I'm a testament to that it has taken me 35 years. So when people say you're an overnight success, it's 35 years in the making.
Yeah. Now, carrying forward in your journey, you've tasted the highs, but have you also tasted the lows?
Absolutely. I started in the business in 1988. I was 18 years old. You know, lots of rejection, lots of people saying, you look younger than my kid. Why would I take advice from you? 1989, we were at an all-time peak, and we just went through that in 2022. We were at an all-time peak. And then what happened? 1990, 1991, 1992, the market crashes. We're down 35, 40%. As a 19-year-old, I'm looking at the prospect of being bankrupt because I had shared an investment with some foreign investors and my name was on title as a local resident. At the age of 19, I actually go bankrupt. And so talk about lows. Your entire life just changes.
Yeah.
Now, I'm very grateful for the lessons learned today because now I have that sort of muscle memory, know what not to do. And I learned that at a very early age. And it wasn't whether or not I could afford to lose it. It's the fact that it's going to happen and I've got to just learn from it. And through adversity sometimes comes greatness. And I will tell you that in that moment, I second guessed my entire life. You know, being the son of South Asian parents who wanted you to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, they're like, you know, you better go back to school. You know, we told you should have never been in this business. And again, you know, I'm very fortunate to have a lot of people who were supporting me mentally and cheering me on and saying, look, you know, just stick it out. Don't give up at this point. And I didn't want to give up. I wanted to prove everyone wrong that said this kid's too young, he's not going to make it. And I just persevered. I kept going. I basically took on all kinds of advertising, marketing, put myself in more debt to just continue building my brand at that time. I had a farming area of just 300 homes. Today, I have 30,000 homes that I farm. So it just organically, I started scaling up, but I made sure that I was staying in a confined area where people would get to know me. I became part of the community and whatnot. So in 1991, I was like, okay, I should maybe just go back to school. I went back to Laurier for about 6 weeks. to do my business diploma. Hated every minute of it. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to continue building my business. I'm going to continue being in this community, and it's going to take time, but this is what
And Reed is there to help you out at that point.
So Reed was there until 1991 with me.
Got it. And then who else would you say has been a mentor in your career that you remember fondly?
You know, I've had so many mentors in my life. I've had so many well-wishers. Like I'm really grateful for the people that have surrounded me. And, you know, when they say, you know, you're really the average of the 5 people that you that's in your community or in your presence, that's the truth. Because I went to Realty World, and Jerry Stocks and Mike Tremblett were just opening up a new company at the time in 1991. They took me under the wing. I learned a lot about sales. I learned a lot about interaction with people. I learned a lot of my social skills from being around adults, because I was really a 19-year-old kid at the time. And, you know, so those are the great people. Then when I joined RE/MAX in 1994, Bob Stevens, who was the managing broker at that time, you know, and we're still very close friends today. It's been 30 years that we've been close friends. And, you know, I bounce all kinds of ideas off of Bob. Again, it never ceases that your surroundings, your community, your people, you know, you keep them tight and you keep them close.
I have a couple of questions. When you are in the 90s, you've seen the 90s, you've seen the 2000s, you've seen the 2010s, you've seen the ebbs and flows of the entire, again, 35 years is a very, very big number. And because we have such a high level of entrance of real estate agents, you know, incoming, outgoing, nonstop, what would you say is predominantly changed in the industry of real estate from a business standpoint, other than the transacting part has evolved overall. We've gone through evolutions, but what would you say are the major changes? Would you say the mindsets are still the same mindsets that someone would have experienced in the 90s or the 2000s? Would you say that the challenges and the problems at that time are way more different than what the problem and challenges are this time? What would you say?
I mean, that's such a loaded question. There's so many changes.
Yeah.
And you know what? Some of us old timers will say, oh, things were better back in the old days. I don't think things were better back in the old days. There's way more transparency today, which I love. Yeah. And, you know, one cannot get away with a lot of the shady practices that existed back in the day because people are well informed. And, you know, the biggest change I would find today is that we are not really selling to people. We're providing information. We're providing interpretation of what they already may know. They just need someone to like confirm what they know. The level of professionalism today concerns me. That's where I'm concerned. And I'm not talking about advertising and this type of thing. I'm just talking about agent to agent, over-promising, under-delivering to clients, all of the side businesses that are going on within the business. So it's really disheartening when you see that. And I think that although the barrier to entry now seems to be high, there's a lot of unprofessional people running around. And you know, when the market is doing well, you can maybe get away with it, but it comes to bite you later on. And I see that happening. And I just wish there was a higher standard and a higher ethical code that agents would abide.
Can you share some specific practices or certain scenarios that you've encountered where left a sour taste in your mouth and it was just an unpleasant experience for you because you list a lot of properties and I'm sure you get a lot of offers, and every agent is very different in terms of how they present that offer, how they give that offer, how they even pick up the phone and call you. I mean, can you share some specifics of things that do not do this as an agent?
So number one, you know, we deal a lot with multiple offers, and I set up a lot of my listings, or most of my listings, in that. Now, if you're going to bring a firm offer to an agent on the offer date, make sure you show up with a bank draft.
Yeah.
Or make sure you have the funds available. Don't put in 4 offers on one day and say, well, we'll decide who we want to place a deposit with. So a lot of now, it's not happening as much today as it was when, 2019 to 2022. It was crazy. It's like, okay, are we really going to receive a bank draft? And there were so many times. Or tricking the agent into accepting an offer, but before you submit your bank draft, you're like, I just need to do a quick inspection before they drop off the deposit. Like, this stuff is happening all the time to me. So, people often criticize the way I do my business. Number one, I say I want a bank draft with an offer, or I want to see at least the photograph, and I'm not going to send you the accepted offer back until you make a wire transfer or a deposit, or actually drop off the deposit to my office. The other thing is, in my listings, I state that I don't want phone calls. So if you want to communicate with me, email me. You will get an instant reply on my emails. I don't publish my phone number, my text, or my cell phone number. And the reason for that is, as an agent, we need to stop calling the listing agent and saying, what is your seller's expectation? Because you cannot disclose that. You're not allowed to tell the other agents what the seller's willing to accept. So why does an agent feel it's acceptable to pick up the phone and say, can you tell me what your sellers are willing to, can you tell me what range I can get if you want sort of a range and whatnot? Well, really, again, like, I'm not going to give you those numbers. I've got a closed offer process. You're to submit your offer on a certain date at a certain time with a certain deposit. On that date, submit your best offer. I will give you an opportunity to improve.
Yeah.
But what I don't want to do is get on a phone call and you try to be my buddy and ask me, hey buddy, what's the seller going to take?
Yeah.
I can't tell you that. I'm violating my agency relationship with my seller.
Exactly.
But this happens every day.
Yeah.
And for that reason, on my listings, it states no phone calls, emails only by the agent, because I don't want to be in a position, and I want it all in writing, because I don't want anyone to say to me, this is what you said to me.
When you're selling such a high level of homes, we're talking 422 transactions. That's an average of almost 2 transactions a day, or maybe even some days you're doing 3 to 4 home sales. Walk me through that process when you have 3 or 5 homes for sale and you have that many offers in a day. How does Faisal run his schedule? What is he doing? How's he coordinating this? Because you said you don't have a team, but I'm sure you must have a back end team to help you, unless you're doing it all by yourself and you're Superman and I don't know about it, you know? So share with me exactly.
Well, I can take very little credit for all the back end. In fact, I take 0 credit. I'm useless in the office.
Yeah.
So I have Jennifer, who's been with me for 22 years. Alicia, who's been with me for about 8 years. Kira's been with me a couple of years. And my brother is my property manager and office manager to handle all of the moving parts. They are not licensed or registered agents with my office, so that allows me to be the only agent that shows up. So I'm the guy, the buck stops at me. They don't give out price information, that comes to me. Every email that comes to our organization comes to me and to all of my staff. And by doing so, we're all in the loop. We all have our jobs that we need to do and our duties that we fulfill. So Alicia is great. She does all the listing coordinating. She does all of the ad writing, and she does all the offer management as it comes in to give me the summaries. Jennifer is awesome at doing all the admin part, doing all the compliance stuff. In fact, she gets mad at me all the time because I'm not doing things the right way, and she fixes it for me. Yeah. I have so many people that I'm fortunate to be watching my blind spots, really, and just checking up on things. So they're coordinating everything. So what I'm doing is getting the summary, getting all the terms. Of course, I'm reviewing everything. Then I call the seller and I say, here's where everything's via DocuSign. Thank goodness for technology. And that's one of the things. I'm a dinosaur. 1988, fax machines were technology, right? So today, what I can do, and I would literally drive from Cambridge to Brampton to Mississauga, or I would give them $5 and say, go to the local variety store and the fax will come in. You'll have to pay $1 per sheet when I send you a fax. Yeah. So we've now got so much available to us that allows me to do the level of transaction that I'm doing without actually having to be physically present. And it's all about informing your client. And today's buyers and sellers are very comfortable with technology. When we look at the demographic now, I have an 85-year-old that I'm dealing with right now. They love DocuSign. They love dealing with all this virtual stuff. So if they can adapt to it, it makes your life easier and allows you to do far more volume. But again, I've got a great staff that basically watches everything, watches my back and makes sure that everything is done properly. So the listing, the feedback, the follow-up, the marketing, the coordination, making sure I'm on time, all of that is done for me by my group.
And it's so interesting because, I run a real estate company and I work with a lot of agents in my firm as well when they want to build out their teams and they want to grow things out. And a lot of times they think that I just need to hire more agents. I need to hire more agents. I need to hire more agents. We got the #1 RE/MAX agent in the world with 0 agents on his team. So how does that look like? Is there a reason why you decided not to have a team? I mean, you do have a team, but your team is more back end. Your back end systems seem to be a lot more proficient and beefed up compared to, you having team members. Is there a reason why you decided not to do that?
I didn't like the concept of, if I call you, Ron, to list my home and you send someone other than yourself, I'm going to be turned off. When I call my lawyer, I want to speak to my lawyer. When I go to see my doctor, I don't want the nurse. So I want the person that and maybe that's me, maybe I'm old school, but I want to deal with people how I want to be dealt with. So if you're going to call me, you're going to get me. Now, I will say this. I list all of these properties. I refer. So if someone calls me on my listing, I'll show it because it's my listing. Once I've shown that property and they say, well, Faisal, thank you very much for showing us this house. This is not something we're really interested in. Can you show us some other homes? My answer is no. I will refer you to some agents and you can choose to work with them and they will show you the homes. So I am 100% devoted to my listings. Now, if my seller wishes to buy a home, I'm their agent.
Got it.
So I do not have a team. I don't have that, and a lot of the listeners might hate me saying, I don't have that ego where I have to have 40 people surrounding me and walking around and me doing classes with them all day long, trying to train them. But how many transactions are these people doing? And you as a team leader, how many transactions have you done as a result? And how much of your time has been spent trying to feed these people? Feed yourself first. Do really well first. And maybe adapt to a system. So I have this entire system and I've mapped it all out and talk about it in my book, where it's a referral network. It has nothing to do with, they can advertise. In my own market, my referral agents have buses and benches and billboards and flyers, and they're in my marketplace, but they're great agents. And they're great with working with buyers. So I have no problem picking up the phone and saying, hey, Stacy, can you take this client for me?
In your book, when you mapped out this process, now this process is 35 years of experience of knowing what works and what doesn't work. Trial and error, and you've come up with a formula that seems to be very efficient and working. Talk to me about, again, this is more than a sale, where it's not just about the successes. And your book has done exceptionally well because you're a best-selling author on Amazon. Congratulations to you on that, first off. I'm sure there's been a dream of everyone to put their life experiences in a book together, but when they come down to writing and sitting down and penning out things, it's just they draw blanks. I'm talking about myself here, okay? You draw a blank, you wake up, you're like, what am I write about? You're like, I just summed up my life in like 500 words. Like, where do I go from here? What's the writing process like? What prompted you to write a book? Did someone tell you, hey, you should write a book about this? Or was it more of cashing in the timing of everything that's going around, where the market presence, the hype, the number one brand, you're all in the newspaper, the media, everything. Oh my God, it's Faisal. You're like, okay, this is the perfect time to put a book together. Was this all planned out, or is it just happened naturally? I wanted you to be transparent and share this.
So this whole process started about close to 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I keep journals, I keep logs, a lot of my experiences.
Yeah.
So I would have all of this, and initially, it was all on paper.
Yeah.
And I would just write little notes, stick them in a file. And then I started just making notes every night before I would go to bed, just write a few little notes about the day and experiences that I had, some inspirational stuff, sometimes you learn from your own experiences, other times you learn from others. So just things that then I sat down and started doing a lot of topics on, and I was being asked to speak at certain events and whatnot. Then I would be asked to meet with people. And they're getting the business, they're inspired. And I'm like, I love that idea and I would love to do more of that, but I just didn't have the time. So I had all of this information, a lot of ideas and thoughts in my head, and COVID happened. So I decided March of 2020, I decide that everything's shut down, that I'm going to pack up and go to the cottage and spend 3 to 4 days there.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to write.
Yeah. Because
we didn't know if we were actually going to ever show a house again or what that even looks like.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, this is a good opportunity. So, I would spend a few days there, and I just needed to mentally keep myself occupied, because you can't go from being at that level of work to just shutting down and sitting in your pajamas all day. I tried it for 3 days. It didn't work for me. And that's when I started compiling all of the information I had, sat down, and I just wrote for days. And before you knew it, I had a couple hundred pages written. And I'm like, wow, this is now, what do I do with this? I can't figure out what I'm going to do with this next. And I started thinking about titles and, like all the things. You start dreaming about what you want this thing to look like. And I thought, okay, I need to find someone that can help me put this together, right? I'm not a very highly educated person. And if you read my book, those are my words. They're not a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
I had an editor from New York take a look at it, and he was great. He went through the whole thing and fixed my grammar and fixed all the spelling errors and all that kind of stuff.
Polished it up, yeah.
Polished it up because we didn't have AI back then.
Yeah,
I wish I did. I would have just dropped into the AI and it would have been all new. That's what I give. And it's interesting, if you read the book, I didn't leave anything out. And the reason for writing the book, number one, was for my kids to have a journal of my life. Because I don't sit down with my kids and say, this is what I went through in my life. And this, I just wanted them, they pretend like they've read it, but I don't think they've actually read the whole book yet. But I'm going to make them read it one day, or at least listen to the audio version. Number two was, I didn't have the time to always sit down with people that wanted to meet with me and just sort of get some tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff. So now I have something to hand out. And, when people say, hey, can I meet with you or can we have coffee? And I don't mean this arrogant. I just did not have the time to do it. I've had friends, colleagues say to me, man, why would you write all your secrets in here? Why would you give away all your, because, I figured there's probably going to be one time in my life that I'll have an opportunity to write. So I want to be as transparent as possible. I wrote everything. I spilled my guts in it. I talked about the mistakes I've made. I talked about my bankruptcy, talked about the trials of my childhood. All of those things I put in there. I talked about my systems that I implement as an agent. And I talk about my investment strategies, because a lot of my clients will reach out to me and say, hey, we want to invest. We hear you've done well with your investments or your developments. Can you talk to us a little bit about it? Where do we get started? So it's all in there. So I'm able to hand that book to someone and say, look, a lot of the information's in here. If I can't speak to you in depth, all that information's in.
That's incredible. And I'm definitely going to get a copy of that book, because I would love to read that book a little bit more in depth. You mentioned your children, and talk to me a little bit about your family, because I don't think we, in the hustle and bustle of your life, we get a chance to know what it's like having Faisal as a father. And how is Faisal as a father? Is he too busy for the family? Is there a moment where the kids want more time from him? The wife wants more time from him? How do you create that balance in your? I don't believe in balance. I don't think a balance ever will exist. We talk about it all the time. We promote it all the time, but I don't think there is any balance, no matter how hard you try. There's always going to be, what do you do? How do you handle it?
Well, to your point, work-life balance does not exist. Yeah. Not if you're in this business, it does not exist. And that mindset of, I'm going to have this, you might have that, but you might have more life, but very little success in what you're doing. So it just depends. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
Good for you. If that's what you want to do, great. Who am I as a father? I'm trying hard. I'm just trying hard, failing a lot and succeeding sometimes. But at the end of the day, my kids know me and I think they love me, but I spend as much time as I can. So
how many children do you have?
My son Yusuf is 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my daughter Anissa, she's going to be 19 in May.
Wow.
So just the two kids, boy and girl. They call it $1 million family because it costs you that much to raise them, right? So, Yusuf has different sort of hobbies. Anissa has different hobbies. So I try to adapt to whatever they're into. Yusuf's into cars and whatnot. I'm a big car guy, so that's our passion.
We're going to talk about your collection after. I've heard some great things about your collection. So
Anissa just, she's my happy-go-lucky, just like some beach vacation. So we're taking off to, her and I are going to go on a little birthday holiday with, so I spend as much time as I can. But in 2014, Yusuf would have been 12 years old. Anissa would have been 9 years old. And, I started realizing that I'm not spending enough time with my kids. I never missed any important events or sports or any of that, but I just felt that I left for work in the morning. By the time I came home, they were getting ready for bed. So that half an hour, 45 minutes just wasn't cutting it for me. And it was, gratefully enjoyed success leading up to their birth. So it was not like I had to work this hard. So that's where I started thinking about, okay, how can I make my life simpler so that I can spend more time with my kids, but not give up on my business? So I hired more people. I put better systems into play. I did better follow-up systems. So I started really obsessing over how do I run things more efficiently so I can buy back some of my time. I started paying people to do things that were taking away. So I have an acre lot. I was cutting the grass. Being Indian, I was being cheap, right? So I'm like, I will cut my own grass and I will shovel my own snow and I will do all my own yard work.
Yeah.
And it'll look like crap.
Yeah.
But I'm going to hire people to do all these things so I can get my 4 hours on the weekend back and maybe go do something with my kids instead of saving that $80 on cutting the grass. In 2014, I decided that, okay, actually it was more my wife who decided that we need to like figure this out because you're working 7 days a week, you're working 12 hours a day, like, you're burning out, not really, you use Happy Up. I use Happy Up all day. So by the time you get home, you're not giving your best self to your family. And that's not fair to them. And at that point, we made a conscious decision to buy this cottage in Blue Mountain. And to this day, as many times as I can, and at least 2 to 3 times a month, on Thursday night, I leave Cambridge and head up to the cottage. My family joins me, sometimes Thursday, sometimes over the weekend. And from Thursday night to Sunday afternoon, because Sunday evenings, I have to be at my parents' house for dinner. So that's part of my extended family. My mom and dad, my brother, cousins, all of that, we all get together at my mom and dad's house every Sunday evening, no matter where, unless we're out of the country, that's where we go. So it's all about that balance. Now, I don't shut down for those days. So it's a myth if people say, oh, I only work 4 days a week. Yes, I'm physically only present 4 days a week. But from Thursday evening to Sunday, I'm still on. I'm still taking calls. I'm still dealing with whatever's coming in. I'm taking the calls. I'm responding to every email. We have a 20-minute rule in our system. We must get back to an email. Someone's got to respond within 20 minutes. I don't expect my staff to drop everything. Hope they don't hear this on the weekend and respond. So I'll get back to my staff. I'll respond to an email inquiry on, we have this instant home evaluation process that we do. I'll respond to it personally. I have no problem. I don't have to wait till Monday. Again, it comes down to how serious are you? But I will take segments of my day and make sure that we ski all winter. So, while I'm on the hills for 4 hours, I'm not checking, but I have someone checking and making sure they're on top of it.
Talk to me a little bit about your wife. It seems like she's played a major role in who you've become today. Children. What role has she played in your life, and what would you say?
When you have a good partner, they bring peace to your life. So we got married. I was 30. She was 23. Robbed the cradle. And our son was born 2 years after.
Wow.
If she wasn't the mother she is, I wouldn't have the peace of mind to go out and do what I do because as a family person, especially culturally, we're always sort of, you're worried about your kids. Are they being raised right? Are they following your religion? Are they eating the right food? All those things are always in the back of your mind. It may sound foreign to some people, but that is part of our culture. Is like you're always worried about all these things. And are you raising them right? Are they being good kids? Are they growing up with good values? And when you have a partner who takes that worry away from you, that allows you to really focus. It allows you to really concentrate on providing and doing all the things that you can do to lift I didn't grow up with a lot. I didn't have, we had a lot of love in the family. We had a lot of support in the family. We had no money though. And that was one component I wanted. So for me, it was really, I was hyper-focused on gaining success. I was hyper-focused on getting out of that sort of poverty mindset and coming
Financial independence, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. You mentioned a little bit about, growing up in a family of not having much. Are your parents, are they still with you?
Yes.
Or, yeah, okay,
Yes.
cool. That's incredible. Are they proud of you?
Very much. I think my mom's a little too proud. She just yaps about me everywhere she goes. I was at someone's home the other day and she says, oh, I'm your mother's dental hygienist. And she wouldn't stop talking about how great you are. I'm like, okay, it needs to stop.
You're a celebrity, no celebrity can match what you are to your mother.
I don't think so. Yeah, to my mom only.
Yeah.
To my mom, yes.
Only even my mother shares all my posts, all
Yes,
the
exactly.
It's like even the silliest of the silliest things. Like
Exactly.
And how about your father? What's your relationship like with your father?
My father was a great inspiration. So my father went through a lot of tragedy in his life. My grandfather died when my father was only 1 year old. My dad left India when he was 16 to go work in a textile. He was married at a young age as well to my mom and dad. They were arranged and they moved to Canada. In 1972, my father came to Cambridge working in the textiles as a weaver. In 1973, we arrived because he had to get settled. And, he stayed in an apartment with 12 guys. And he would say that the bed was never cold because there would be 3 shifts and 4 guys just rotating on these beds. Worked very, very hard to give us a good life and give us more than what he had growing up in India. In 1975, unfortunately, he got a job in a press manufacturing plant. In a freak accident, he lost his right arm in 1975. I was 5 years old. My brother was 6. My sister was 3 months old. It was a huge tragedy. Very little support. Not knowing the language, not knowing your rights. Really got nothing out of the company. Got a very small disability pension. Went through, years of depression. My mother would walk to work. My mother worked in a factory for 30 years just to provide for us.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of difficulty growing up and seeing our parents suffer and you think, I never want to be in that position. I never want to be in a situation where my kids will suffer.
If you don't mind me asking, when an incident like that happens in a family, and especially in a South Asian, because I'm South Asian as well, mindset first is, why me? Why us? Why did God do this to us?
Yeah.
Something bad happened, someone cursed us, we were evil eye, all that, and this is the first thing that you're thinking about as a family, especially when you're super, super traditional. What did you and your brother do at that point in time? What was the sentiment like? Who was the driving force? Was it more of, let's take a day at a time? What's your father feeling? What was that dynamic like? I mean, if you can remember.
I'll tell you, and excuse me if I get emotional on this one, but we learned strength from my mom because she never gave up. She said, this is not going to break us. They could have packed up and gone back to Pakistan or India and said, that's it, we're out. She kept working. She worked overtime. She took double shifts. She worked 7 days a week. She would not stop. So we learned that work ethic from my mom. It's like, wow, this is like, and at the time we didn't know we were learning this. We were kids. But my father never once blamed anyone. Never blamed the company, never said this is what these people did to us, this is what happened because I came to this country. He was always smiling, always joking, never gave up, kept a positive attitude, always said, look, you know what? This is the will of God. And maybe this had to happen for something better to happen. And through you kids, maybe we'll see success. And we're fortunate that happened.
I feel that pressure growing up with my father, and I always feel like I have to do more and more no matter what. And whatever you do, it's never going to be enough. So did you feel if anything is to happen, it's going to be in my hands? And if I'm going to be the one to make it, it has to be me?
Yeah, that was, so at the age of 12, my brother was 13. In 1979, we lost our family home. I was 9, my brother was 10. So we went through that where the sheriff showed up, changed the locks. We had to go into rental, borrow money to get through. Again, my parents didn't give up. Interest rates were 1979 to 1980 were 19%. So it was virtually impossible for a family to keep that. And that's why, I'm very sensitive to what's happening with interest rates today. And in those days, it was very easy to give up and say, that's it again. But they never stopped. They just kept persevering, kept doing what my brother and I would get into the back. And I can tell you, all summer, we would get into the back of a cube van. They'd pick us up at one of the local grocery stores, take us to some farm, and I don't even know where that farm is to this day, to pick strawberries for $2 a bushel, okay? We'd make about $15 a day, and we'd give that money to our parents to help pay for the rent, just to help. So it was all hands on deck. Working part-time jobs. I had 3 jobs all throughout my high school, working at Shoppers Drug Mart, working at the Byway. You guys are too young to remember what the Byway was. I had a job as a teller as well at the bank, just to make sure that we were all, and we had one bank account. My family had one bank account until I was married. And that wasn't because they wanted it that way. It's because we wanted it that way. We wanted to build ourselves up together and create a better environment for all of us. My brother was just going into university. My sister was 5 years younger than me, coming up through high school to go to university. I saw an opportunity there to do something different. Although, like I said, my parents were very unhappy about me not going to university. I had great marks, had been accepted to all the universities. And I just had this feeling that this is what I'm destined to do, that I didn't want to take that path. I didn't fit that box of just getting a degree, getting a job, and working for someone. I wanted to do my own.
If you could tell your younger self something now, knowing what you know, what would you tell the younger Faisal?
Those struggles were worth it. Everything that I went through, all the struggles we faced, all the things we did without, they were worth it because through all of those adversities came success. It gave me muscle memory. It gave me the drive. And, I don't wish struggles on my kids. In fact, we do everything we can not to make them suffer in any way. But I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that happened, not for the bad things that happened to my family, but I'm grateful that I wasn't handed anything, because it gave me the drive to go out there and learn and force myself to become something and not have something handed to me.
You inspire a lot of people, the impact that you make in a lot of people's lives. What would you say, or who inspires you as a person? Who motivates you? Who plays a big role in your life? And I'm sure with all the mentors that you've had, how about now moving forward? Who would you say who inspires you, or what inspires you?
Inspiration to me is everywhere. Like, I'm still inspired by my parents. I'm inspired by family. I'm inspired by my kids. I see some of the things that they're going through, and it's not that they're suffering, but they're going through some hardships and they're overcoming those hardships. So inspiration is everywhere. If you're open-minded and you allow yourself to take in, and if you put your ego aside and you're willing to learn and take it in, and you're willing to take the criticism, and you're willing to listen, and you're willing to look into your own self and find that spirituality or whatever it is, that's all inspiration. Whether it's you want to get it from books, or you get it from your religion, or you get it from someone that is your mentor, the inspiration is all around us, and you have to keep an open mind to take that in.
Has there been a book or a quote or any life guiding principle that has had a major impact in your life or your career?
So I've always been a big Tony Robbins follower.
Got it.
Right from the age of 18, from his first book to all of his courses, I've always followed it throughout my entire life. And, there's a lot there, and it's not, and, people say, oh, that's so culty and there's so much stuff in there. It's like, no, take what is significant to you, take what's relatable to you, and implement that. So one of the biggest takeaways that I had is overcoming rejection. That was a tough thing for me, because, day one, you go into a real estate office, they say, you're too young, you're never going to make it. So that's rejection. So how do you start over? And then every time in our business, you don't get a listing, you don't get a buyer, you don't get a deal, you lose an offer, you feel rejected. So, and that you can start spiraling and go into the rabbit hole, right? So it's about snapping out of that and allowing yourself to not just sweep it under the rug and forget about it, but allowing yourself to feel it in the moment. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to yell, yell. If you need to scream, scream. If you need to get angry, get angry. Do whatever you got to do, but do it for a moment in time and get past it and never think about it again. And those are some of the takeaways that I've had from, those types of courses, and whether it's Tony Robbins or other self-help gurus, there's always value in learning from them.
I have an important question to ask you. And this is a little bit of a personal question, because I was thinking about this the other day. How do you reignite your own passion? What that means is, number one agent in the world. How do you've done it now. You've achieved the title. You've got the accolade. Do you want to do it again next year? Do you want to do it again the third year, the fourth year, or fifth year? Or it's more of okay, I've done it now. Okay, cool. I can chill out now. How do you reignite that passion? And I asked myself, as I kept, going year after year after year, you've tasted the highs, you've tasted the lows, you've tasted the highs again, and you make X amount of money, you achieve X amount of level of achievement, or the goal that you set out, you accomplished it, and you're like, man, I've done it now. It's rather than just me do more of it. How do I continue to stay in the business or feel passionate about the business? Because there always comes a point in a time where you're just not feeling it anymore, and you're like, how do I get back that energy or that buzz that I originally had when I first wanted to do this in the first place? What would you say to that? Have you ever felt like that? Reignite the passion?
And I'll tell you, I don't get tired of this. I honestly don't get tired. There are moments that we have where we're feeling burnt out or whatnot, but I do not get tired of this. Do I want to do it? Of course I want to do it. Everyone wants to be on the top. And once you've reached that title, there's even more pressure because you want to stay up there.
Yeah.
And I've been very fortunate on the Canadian side. I've had that title for many, many years. This is the first time, 35 years in the business, to receive that. It's a real honor. Look, does that define me? Absolutely not. Would I like to stay up there? Of course I would. No one wants to drop from their rankings, but it's not something that, for me, it's not about just reaching that title or doing really well first you build up yourself, then you build up your family, then you build up your community, then you help build up the world. And I love to be a part of initiatives that are doing, whether it's philanthropy or building houses in underserviced world communities, those types of things. And that's where my passion question is, how do I stay excited about this business? Because I'm not just a salesperson. I'm a developer. I'm a builder. I'm a property manager. I'm a coach. I'm working with community groups to enhance communities throughout the world. World Housing is one of the charitable organizations that I'm an ambassador for. And, we're building homes in Pakistan, in Philippines, in Zambia. So those are all things that, you have to have more. And, when you're busy, you can be even busier, but you're productive and you can do things to give back to a career or a community or a family that's done so much for you.
I've really enjoyed our conversation today, and I think in all the episodes we've shot, this is probably the only episode where I teared up a little. You actually got me to tear up with your story and when you were talking about that. I want to finish off this episode with a very important question for you. Who is Faisal Susiwala?
It's a tough one. Faisal Susiwala is just a young kid at heart that wanted more and strive to do that, and feels very grateful to God that He has blessed me with what I have today. And so Faisal Susiwala is a very grateful person.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining on More Than a Sale. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very special episode. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I enjoyed speaking with Faisal. Until next time.